The sound of breaking glass shattered the silence of midnight. At 12:03 a.m., in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Atlanta, the world of Marcus King, a decorated former Navy SEAL commander, was torn apart. He had survived Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia. He'd led men through gunfire, rescued hostages, and buried brothers in arms. But nothing prepared him for the moment he woke up to the deafening sound of gunshots inside his own home. His first instinct wasn't confusion. It was instinct, raw, tactical, rehearsed in 1,000 drills. Marcus rolled off the bed, pulling his wife, Alana, down with him. But in that split second between movement and comprehension, a bullet tore through the bedroom window. Alana screamed, not out of fear, but pain. Marcus felt her body jerk in his arms. The warmth of her blood spread across his hands. Then came the yelling, "Police! Don't move!" But Marcus didn't hear that. All he heard was the slowing breath of the woman who had stood by him through deployments, trauma, and nights of silent tears. The woman who had promised to wait for him, and had. When the tactical team burst through the front door, weapons drawn and flashlights slicing through the dark, Marcus was already kneeling by his wife, pressing his hand to the wound. "Stay with me, baby. Stay with me," he whispered, his voice trembling, something his former men would never have believed possible. But they had the wrong house. Hours earlier, a confidential informant had fed local police a bad lead about a suspected drug ring operating out of the white two-story on Pine Grove Lane. The problem was, there were two identical houses, one belonging to the suspect, and one belonging to Marcus and Alana King. By the time the mistake was realized, it was too late. The raid team was young, some barely out of the academy. Their leader, Sergeant O'Donnell, had 20 years of experience but was working overtime, exhausted, chasing one last big bust before retirement. None of them knew who lived inside that house. None of them checked. When Marcus stood up, covered in his wife's blood, eyes blazing, something primal came alive inside him. He was unarmed, but the look in his eyes froze the entire team in place. "Get your hands up," one of the officers shouted, trembling slightly. Marcus didn't move. "You just shot my wife," he said quietly. "You came into my home. Do you have any idea who I am?" The sergeant stepped forward, stammering something about a warrant, about a mistake, but Marcus wasn't listening. He was calculating. Every fiber of his training screamed at him to retaliate, to disarm, to neutralize. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was his home. And the enemy wasn't a foreign fighter, it was his own country's broken system. The ambulance took 15 minutes to arrive. By then, Alana was barely breathing. Marcus rode with her, his hands still sticky with her blood. He didn't say a word. Alana died at 3:47 a.m. The official statement released by the police department called it a tragic accident. They offered condolences, promised a full investigation. Standard procedure, the same lifeless apology families across the country had heard too many times before. But Marcus King wasn't just another grieving husband. He had spent his entire adult life serving a flag that now seemed to have turned on him. And he knew how to fight. In the weeks that followed, Marcus buried Alana with full honors. His former SEAL teammates flew in from across the country, silent, stoic men who'd seen death but struggled to face this one. They stood behind him like a wall as he lowered her casket into the ground. Then Marcus went to war again, not with bullets but with truth. He called in favors, from journalists, lawyers, veterans, and even politicians who owed him their lives. He gathered every detail of the raid, every body cam clip, every dispatch log. He exposed the lies, the falsified reports, the lazy warrant verification that had cost his wife her life. When the footage went public, the nation exploded. Cable news picked it up. Hashtags flooded social media. Veterans from every branch rallied behind Marcus. Protesters filled the streets with signs reading, "Justice for Alana King," and "Wrong door, wrong life." But Marcus didn't stop there. He founded the Alana Project, an organization aimed at reforming police training protocols, emphasizing accountability and de-escalation. His mission, to make sure no family endured what he had. In his first public speech, standing on the steps of the courthouse, he spoke through a trembling voice that carried the weight of both grief and conviction. "I've led men through wars on foreign soil. But the war we're fighting here, the one in our own neighborhoods, in our own hearts, that's the one destroying us from the inside. My wife wasn't a threat. She was a mother, a teacher, a friend. You can't keep calling this a mistake when it keeps happening. We have to be better, all of us." The crowd erupted in tears and applause. The officers involved were indicted. The department's chief resigned. Laws were passed requiring verified target confirmation before any nighttime raids. It wasn't enough to bring Alana back, but it was something. A year later, Marcus stood on that same porch at midnight. The glass had been replaced. The blood washed away. But the memory would never leave him. He looked up at the stars, the same stars he'd stared at overseas, and whispered, "We made it, baby. We're changing things." A soft wind rustled through the trees, almost like a reply. And for the first time since that night, Marcus smiled, not because the pain was gone, but because he'd turned it into purpose. The story of Marcus King reminds us that strength isn't just found on the battlefield, it's found in love, in loss, and in the courage to demand justice when the system fails. Sometimes, the fight for what's right begins only after everything you love is taken away.